All right, welcome back for another Sad Jams interview. We're here with John Russell from the band Gnawing. Just a little bit about the band. Originally, it was started as a home recording project with John Russell. Gnawing has turned into a full-fledged band hailing from Richmond, Virginia, taking bits and pieces from a broad range of influences from 60s cosmic country to 90s alternative rock and more. Gnawing mixes sentimental lyrics with loud, fuzzy riffs. And y'all just released your EP, Shaky. Well, not just released, but you released it. That was your last release right after the pandemic hit off of Refresh Rex. So welcome, John. Thanks for taking the time to join us and to just talk through it and catch up.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. So I've just been reading some of your interviews recently about the band. It seems like you just moved from North Carolina to Virginia. Not sure how recent that was, but I moved around a ton. I moved from Nebraska to Texas to Pittsburgh to LA, and I know just every city brings a new experience. Just want to know how your experience has been. Has it changed your sound at all? Has it changed Gnawing at all from what you originally thought?
Yeah, so I moved here 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years. And it definitely, I think Richmond just has sort of a more historic and definitely very healthy punk and alternative scene. So it influenced it just by when I moved up here. I was like, man, we got to be a pretty active band to keep up with all of the other Richmond bands, because they're just constantly getting bigger and bigger, headlining spots and local support spots, and I feel like everybody in Richmond, just there's a constant slew of new material being released, even if it's just a Bandcamp only release, which is pretty inspiring, because I always historically in bands have been okay, it has to have a physical release, and it has to come out with such and such backing and all this stuff. And most people in Richmond are just now put it up on Bandcamp, and that's been cool to watch happen.
Yeah,
Stylistically, I think.
I would say
Sorry.
sometimes it's just getting material out there. I know a lot of bands we've worked with, everybody's really itchy just to get it out, to have some stuff out, which
Yeah.
from my point of view, it's man, let's take some time with it. But there's some joy in just putting it up and see what it does, and getting fans to engage some more.
Yeah, definitely. And one of I think the last Bandcamp Friday of 2020, we put up as a bonus of, if you bought the Shaky on Bandcamp, we put up all the demos that we had made, that we had sent to Josh that runs Refresh, and all just us kind of it showed the stages of the song, especially West Coast. I feel changed a ton from when I wrote it to showing it to the other people that play in the band, and then actually putting it together and stuff. So that even if it's something like that, even if it's an already released song but you're putting out fragmented demos or stuff, I just love that. I love to see any of that kind of stuff, and
just some good,
watch somebody's brain work.
Yeah, some good fan engagement and stuff like that. Just to get
Definitely
who love you more engaged.
Yeah.
Has it I'm not super familiar with the scene in North Carolina and Virginia. I know some of my favorites recently have been Charles Walker, Halloween Costume Contest. From Virginia, it's down. I know Richmond is Downhaul. They're on Refresh, I think, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we started working with a band from South Carolina. I don't know if there's a huge difference between the two, but B. Fraser. You've heard of them?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You said the Virginia scene was pretty sick, and there's tons of bands and music always being released. Is that the same for that whole coastal region?
Yeah, I think that local bands in North Carolina and South Carolina too definitely stay active, and definitely put out a lot of things as well too. I think for some reason, a lot of bigger tours tend to skip over the Carolinas as a whole. So there'll usually always be a Virginia date be it like Richmond or Charlottesville or even like Virginia Beach has been really popular lately. And it usually just goes straight past both Carolinas into like Georgia or something, which is really weird. So I think that any North Carolina or South Carolina band are definitely just as active as a Virginia band or a New York band or a Florida band, but they might not get that same level of exposure on a bigger stage, you know.
Yeah.
So
That's
which is always interesting to kind of watch how it shapes people's sounds and attitudes and like the way that they interact with music.
that's weird, like, because I know, I mean, you have like Charlotte, you have a couple other bigger cities, because like I know, like growing up in like Nebraska, like I went to college in Omaha, and they like it's great scene and everything, but it's just like
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to get people to stop. And one, it's like you have to like sort of go out of the way to get to it. It's like if you want to hit like a Kansas City, because you can just go Des Moines straight to Kansas City, or if you're like going
Right.
west, like you have to drive through the entire state, and there's not much once you get past like Lincoln. So that's like it's a little surprising. Like if you're doing like an East Coast run, like why wouldn't you hit like a couple like
Yeah.
stops in like North Carolina or South Carolina?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like Raleigh has a ton of like great big, you know, like bigger venues that would fit that kind of bill, or like Charlotte again, you know, has great venues. But I feel like in the past 10 years, like bands on like a level of like, you know, like Mastodon or something would always skip. Like it would just go straight through. And it's like you're driving through it anyway. It's like that's, you know, that people are gonna come to the show. Like what's the why?
Little pit stop. Is there like was there like a local band that like really got you like interested in like making music or like really influenced gnawing?
Yeah, I mean, basically everybody that I interacted with in North Carolina, but for sure, like Late Bloomer and Bay, specifically out of Charlotte when I was still there. Just the way that they approach, I feel like we all three share pretty similar influences with, you know, we appreciate like country music and sort of, you know, all of us worship like 90s alternative, anything that would have been on the radio in the 90s. And so just seeing what everybody does with that specific influence is always kind of cool to me. But definitely shout out to Late Bloomer and Faye.
Oh yeah. And I know you just like you guys put out Shaky, I think was in April, right after
Mm-hmm.
like pandemic hit, all that stuff, which is still going. I guess like being in music, like I'm seeing like all like the album release aspect is like changed, like the marketing and like the timeline and everything. I guess what's your perception of the release now compared to like when you released it, and what were some of your plans like around the initial release?
Yeah, I mean, we had in April we had about 2 weeks of dates that we canceled, um, and you know, just we were just excited to have. I feel like when you have, you know, we had the tapes, like we had the initial EP that I recorded. We put that on tape, so we had the tapes that shows with us. But I feel like people get really excited about vinyl, so we were really excited to have the 7 inch on the merch table and have people pick it up and be like, oh, okay, like you know, I am gonna spend the money on this. But yeah, I mean, we when it came out in April, we were like, okay, we'll cancel these dates and we'll probably just have to postpone to like October or something. You know, we I think like every band, we were like, we'll definitely be able to still make these dates up in 2020. And then it just so quickly became apparent that we were not going, like this just was not going anywhere. And even now, like we recorded an LP over the summer, and the LP is supposed to come out in July,
Oh yeah.
and we're really stoked about it, but even now we're like, man, like it'll still be like probably October, or
Yeah.
if even, that we can play for this LP. So
How,
it'll be really interesting.
like, if you don't mind talking about your upcoming LP, like what, like, is there like any like differences between like the sound of this one or like the meaning of Shaky compared to like this upcoming one, or like
Yeah, there definitely is. The I think it's so shaky to me is like um still a little apparent of like our and like it like shaky the song shaky to me just sounds like my best attempt at like trying to write like a Dinosaur Jr. song, or trying to voice it through Jay Mascis, um which is, in the early stages of the band, I feel like it's fine to kind of
Yeah.
pretty obviously rip off your influences a little bit.
All right.
But the LP is just a little bit more us. Like I think we really just kind of leaned into like, okay, what does it sound like when the three of us write stuff together? It became more of a democratic process. Like obviously on the tape, that I play everything on that, so that obviously was all the parts were written by me. And then even with Shaky, like those two songs on the 7-inch were still predominantly written by me, and just kind of showed them to the band and was like, this is what this is going to sound like. But with the LP, like Christian, who plays drums, really stepped up, and really me and him spent a lot of time like really carving out structures and working on it together. And Chris brought some riffs and plays bass completely different than I play bass in my brain. So like he really provided some like, all right, so what if I like put some, he's got the theory knowledge. So he's like, I'm gonna like put a third here. I'm like, cool, that sounds awesome. I don't know, go for it. So it's definitely, everybody had their more individual contributions, and it makes it sound more like us than anything else, which is really cool for me to watch it kind of develop into like, now I know what Gnawing sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like thinking of like different projects, just like coming from one person to like just a committee. Just there's some like other people's ideas are definitely like gonna like help it bloom into like the full experience. Whereas like people got a taste with this, and then like all that new bass and all those new ideas is just gonna like take it to another level for sure.
Definitely, yeah, and we all come from pretty different musical backgrounds too. So what things that would make sense in my head, like I love a lot of like classic rock stuff, like Tom Petty and like Creedence Clearwater and stuff. So I always want to have a bridge in a song, because that's just like tradition, like that just it goes in a song. But Christian comes from like he loves a lot of like heavier, like punk and hardcore and metal and stuff. And so like there will be some songs where I'll be like, yeah, and so we'll go to a bridge, and he'll be like, nah, man, we don't need it. Like just knock the bridge out. I'd be like, no, it's gotta have a bridge. So like it's cool to have everybody. And like Chris comes from a lot of like psych rock and like garage rock and stuff. So he wants everything to be like pumping and faster and louder and heavier. So
Jeez,
it's cool to have everybody be like kind of shape it into what they wanted to sound like.
holy shit, the album sounds awesome just by that. Like,
I'm telling you, man, I love it. I know that we wrote it, but I love it. I listen to it all the time.
um, yeah, I guess just like wrap everything up. Like I know you mentioned like your LP's coming up in July, but like what do you picture next for the band? Like even like maybe it's too soon to say like what's after the LP, but like what do you envision? Like what's up next? What can people get excited about?
Yeah, I mean definitely the LP. I think that we all are just so hyperactive with music stuff that we've already started writing. We're already in the writing cycle again for maybe another EP or a second LP. We're just kind of piecing together stuff, but we always keep moving forward. We over the pandemic we bought a van and have been.
Yeah.
Chris is his day job is a carpenter, so we've been decking that thing out to get prepared for touring as soon as it's able to come back. So we're trying to just keep busy and make sure that we are, like as soon as the penny drops and we can start touring again, we're trying to just like bust out and stay out.
Are y'all like completely like decking it out? Like I because one of my friends
Yeah.
he bought a van. He's not a musician or anything, but he bought a van and he turned it into like a mobile home like wood.
Yeah. I've seen a ton of people doing that lately. Yeah, so we took it had two, like obviously the driver in the passenger seat, and then it had two captain's chairs, and then it had a back bench that would fold flat to like turn into a bed.
Yeah,
So we just yanked the back bench out. We got rid of it entirely. And then we built a shelf in the like roof lining so that we could slide guitar cases up there. And then we're gonna build sort of a room within a room in the back, so that it, just extra layer of theft protection.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that right before, when bands were touring before COVID, I feel like there was just so many in 2019. I think like, almost every band got a window busted out or something on tour. So we're trying to be proactive.
Well, John, I appreciate your time and like speaking with us about it. Excited for like all the good stuff. But yeah, everybody go check out Gnawing. Their latest release, Shaky. You still have some 7 inches left.
Oh yeah, we definitely do.
7 inches
Yeah.
left. So one up. All right. I'll talk to you later, man.
Tight. Appreciate it.